Hey everybody. If you've followed what I've been doing lately, you'll know that I've been doing quite a bit of work with nodes in Lightforge. And what I've come to realize is that pretty much nobody understands what I'm talking about when I say that I've added nodes in. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take a few minutes and just explain what nodes are, what they do, and why they are a good idea. So first, let me explain this by telling you like how effects worked inside Lightforge before I did the nodes. Um, Basically, you had a script like this, and this is a pretty simple script. All it does is it takes the intensity value of the light and takes it from 0 to 1 and back again smoothly. Um, and you can see there's like not very much code here. If you do much scripting or programming, you'd be able to look at this and understand what it's doing fairly easily. But the majority of people out there aren't going to be able to do that. It's just how it is. So for a long time, I've realized that there needed to be an easier way to create effects, and finally I settled on the node system because I thought it would be a much easier way to do it and still give you basically all the power that you can do with scripting. And I'm leaving scripting in there anyway in case you want to script effects, because there's just some things that you can do with the scripting that you're not going to be able to do with the nodes. But let me explain to you how the nodes work. First, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new effect, and I'm just going to call it Intensity Fade Nodes. And so what nodes are they are little reusable building blocks. So I'm going to add a couple of them here. I'm just going to build a basic effect so that you guys can see how this works. So I've got an effect input node here, and what this has is it has some basic parameters that the effect system inputs into the node graph here. And then we have the effect output, and this is just how this effect is going to influence whatever lights that it's applied to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more node here. I'm going to add a sine wave. And don't get worried about sine waves and that being complicated or anything. It's not. All it is it's just a way for me to get a value that goes in a wave like this. And it just repeats that over and over again based on the input that I give into it. And what I'm going to input into it is called the phase from the effect input. And all that is it's just its current state in the progress going through the effect. So the effect just sits there and loops over and over again, and it's saying, okay, it's at 0% or 100% or somewhere in between. So that's what the phase value is there. So it's taking that 0 to 1 decimal value, and it's running it into this and generating another value off of that. And then the only other thing we need to do before we can connect this into the output is we need to make it into a larger value, because the 0 to 1 isn't going to give us the full range that we need to go to the output. And I wish there was an easier way for this to work right now, but there isn't. So just bear with me here. This is the only part that's a little bit complicated. So this value right here, 65,535, this is the magic number when it comes to doing 16-bit output. And you don't need to know anything about how that works or why that works. It's just this number right here. This is the maximum value that you can do. And I'll probably make a little node that just outputs strictly this number and don't make people worry about it. But anyway, there we go. Maximum value, that's all you need to know. I'm just going to plug this into the multiply node and then take the output of the sine wave and plug it in here. And now you can see, okay, the sine wave is outputting 0.5. That times 65,535 is 32,700 and yeah, whatever. So I'm just going to take this now and plug it into intensity, and that's the effect. I close this. I can, oops, bug, hold on. Right now it's not updating this panel when I add a new effect. I'll fix that. Anyway, intensity fade is on, so now it's just going to sit here and bring the intensity of the lights up and down over and over again. And that was pretty easy. It's like, what, 4 or 5 nodes? So let's go back in here and edit this, and we'll make it just a little bit more usable. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add an effect settings output, and then I'm going to connect this last node here to the effect settings. And when I do that, it asks me for a control name. And I'm just going to label this rate. And all this is doing is it's just going to add a little rate slider in the user interface so that you can control how fast this effect is going. So there we go. And then I'll do one more. Actually, I'll show you what that looks like real quick here, just so you can see that that actually works. So rate slider, if I have this down here, it's going to do the effect slow. If I have it up here, it's going to do the effect fast. Pretty easy. All right, let's go back into here. So now I want to be able to adjust the maximum value that it's going to go to as well. So if I don't want it to go from 0 to 100% and maybe just want it to go from like 0 to 30%, I'm just going to add another multiply node here, and then I'm going to connect another control to it. And we'll just call this influence. And then I'm going to connect the maximum value to this, and then I will disconnect this and connect the multiply node to that. So let me clean this up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to close that and turn this back on again. And so, okay, now we're going to go, it's going to fade from 0 to 30%. And that's working beautifully. So now you can see how you can set up a pretty simple effect with this. If I go back in here and look at this, there's a whole bunch of different attributes, and there's actually a lot more than are being shown right here. But these are the basic ones that I'm working with right now. And to make it influence a different setting, say I want to have it influence the tilt, I'll just plug it into there. And then let me turn this on again, and it's just going to fade like that, and it's going to do just a tilt up and down with the light. So let me show you a couple more complicated effects so you can see how you can do some more interesting stuff with it. This one isn't necessarily more complicated, it's just different. This is a circle effect. And all this does is it rotates the light around in a circle. And the biggest difference between this and the fade one that we just made was instead of using a sine wave node, we're using a circle node. And this just takes the current phase, the progress, and generates a point on a circle based off of that, and then sends it into the tilt and pan. And so that does this. And you can see that I've also added an offset in there to allow you to, instead of having all the lights do the same thing, have them be offset and staggered, and works real nice. Then I'll show you this rainbow effect, and it does what you would expect a rainbow effect to do. It cycles through colors. And this also has an offset so that I can make this beautiful rainbow effect here. So let me show you how that works. And this looks more complicated than it really is. This is basically using that same fading node setup that we had originally with the sine wave and multiplying by the maximum value. It's just doing it 3 times for the red, green, and blue, and then offsetting each one of those sine waves by a little bit. And I'm not going to explain to you right now why that works the way it does and why you get a rainbow effect off of that. Just know that it does, and it works pretty simply. I think this whole thing took me about 5 minutes to make, and so it's really easy to set up even like somewhat complicated effects pretty quick. And you can take and connect these nodes together to create some really complicated looking stuff. Like say you take a couple of sine waves and connect them together, or a sine wave going into a circle or something like that, and you'll get really unique effects for each different thing that you do. And it's not very difficult to make happen either. And I also recognize that not everybody is going to go in and create effects, but the ability to do it is there, and it's pretty easy if you want to do it. So that's basically what nodes do and how that all works, and I hope that made sense. If it doesn't, feel free to ask questions. It helps me to explain the stuff, since I have to write documentation on it anyway for people to understand. So anyway, thank you for watching.